why they say you can walk on our reputation. See Bill and Lucy at Perry's Floors and More, 127 West Market Street, Princeton.
This is Mallory Hancock Lawrence, and we love our Caldwell and Lyon County friends. We invite you to come to Cadiz anytime you can to shop with us. And we're making it even easier for you. Whether you work in Cadiz or just come to town for a visit, stop in and shop with us. But if you're in a hurry, you can pre-order your groceries at hancocksneighborhoodmarket.com. It's so easy and convenient. Of course, we want to see your smiling face anytime we can, but if you're in a hurry, hancocksneighborhoodmarket.com is the way to go. Hancock's Neighborhood Market, Cadiz.
1580 103.3 WPKY's Coffee Talk continues. We had Shane Bogle in here talking about ground bees, the nice ones, not the bad guys. But now it's time to talk some weather. We have weather forecaster Dave Powell with us this morning. Good morning, Dave.
I'm here.
You're here. I did it right. Good for me. I about got the hang of this.
Oh, good.
Thank you for joining us this morning, Dave. It is so pretty outside.
Yeah, and it's going to stay that way for most of the day. Probably after 4 o'clock or so, we'll start seeing some scattered showers and thunderstorms moving in. None of them are expected to be severe, but, it'll increase as we go into the evening hours. I think that they'll become likely, especially we get into the wee hours of Thursday morning. And then on Thursday, probably we'll have periods of showers, maybe even a thunderstorm. But the high is going to still be in the low 70s, and it looks like that's ahead of a cold front that'll be coming in, which will be Thursday night. And it's not going to really be much of a cold front, mainly just a change of the air masses, may drop a degree or two. But you know what? Friday is looking gorgeous. A high near 70, north winds. Maybe a little bit windy with some gusts as high as up to about 25 miles an hour. But Friday night, look for clear skies. Good night to see some stars or whatever you like to do outside at night. That's legal, of course.
Of course,
and,
put that disclaimer in there.
Saturday's not going to be too bad either. It's going to be a small chance of showers in the afternoon. Don't look like that'll be a big deal. And Saturday night will probably be cloudy as a little disturbance moves through. Actually, it's another little cold front coming through, but it's not going to be a big deal. Doesn't have a lot of moisture to work with. And then Sunday, again, looks like a beautiful day, mostly sunny, high around 70, and it just keeps on getting better. Monday looks good, Tuesday looks good. Probably the next chance of rain we'll have after that may be on Wednesday. We'll have to watch that and see how it goes. But overall, we sure have had a nice spring this year.
I was going to say, we're getting a spring, aren't we?
Yeah, we haven't had a spring in probably 2 or 3 years, so this is kind of refreshing to have one more typical of what it should be like this time of year.
It is.
But, did you hear about the earthquake this morning?
Well, I heard just a little about it. I heard there was one close by. Tell me about that.
Yeah, it's near Dyersburg, Tennessee, just to the northwest of there. It was a 3.6 recorded, and that is right on the New Madrid fault line. And the U.S. Geological Survey says that it occurred just a little bit before 6 this morning. I think the actual time was 5:58 a.m. So, if you're wanting to be really exact about it. Of course, that's always concerning when you get earthquakes on the New Madrid fault zone. As you know, we had some major earthquakes, or you may not know, we had some major earthquakes on the New Madrid zone back in the 1811, 1812. They were so powerful that they were felt hundreds of miles away. It actually was so violent, part of the earth sunk and became what is now Reelfoot Lake. So
I sure didn't know that.
You didn't?
I did not.
Well, I'm
this
glad
is why I talk to
you,
you, so I can learn things, Dave. I always learn something new when we talk.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that. At least my day is not wasted as long as somebody has knowledge.
That's right.
I went back and did some research about this back a couple of years ago when they were doing. They'd come out with some kind of survey, said that we could expect a major earthquake on the New Madrid fault within the next 50 years. And so I said, well, I'm going to research this. And I actually found a book of eyewitness accounts, people who actually lived during that time when it occurred. And, of course, that was the biggest event in their lives because, hey, everybody was talking about it. So a lot of people wrote it down and everything. So I found some interesting tidbits. This is the one I did find I thought was interesting was from Hopkins County on December 6th, 1812. A fellow named H.R. Pierce wrote that at a distance of 130 miles from the center of the quake, the shocks and tremors were distinctly felt in Hopkins County. The trees of the forest swayed, the houses rattled and shook, utensils were thrown down, and terror as the end of the world was felt. Said superstitious awe pervaded the community, religious fervor was renewed, and sinners saw the light, and backsliders renewed their faith. So that shows you it was a frightening time.
And how? What was the magnitude of that one? You might have said
they're saying it was probably somewhere around an 8.0 magnitude.
Oh.
It varies anywhere from a 7.5 to an 8. And I posted about the earthquake this morning, and I think it's on the WPKY Facebook page, is that the earthquake this morning was, actually the New Madrid earthquake of that time is 2,000 times stronger than the earthquake felt this morning. So
right.
That gives you an idea of just how powerful those things are. I'm always interested and concerned whenever I see earthquakes occurring on the New Madrid Fault. It actually has a number of small earthquakes for the last decade. There have been quite a few of them. I think somewhere around 800 a year, which is pretty large amount. But they're generally anywhere from a 1 to a 2.0 or something like that. Get on up to a 3.6. They're a little more stronger, and they're not quite as common. So when you start seeing something like that, you say,
And so that's what I was going to ask you. So a 3.6, what does that feel like? I mean, is that strong? Is that?
No, it's considered. You can feel some shaking from it, but if you're near the epicenter, which in this case was near Dyersburg, and I did have someone who contacted me this morning said they felt it in near Katie's. So, you don't have to be too. You don't have to be too close to actually feel it because the topography we have here, and the New Madrid quake. Actually, what it was, it used to be a rift. A lot of people say, well, if it's like all the other fault zones, these little quakes relieve the pressure and keep it from being a bigger one. Well, that's not necessarily true, because what the New Madrid fault is where the continent tried to rip in half back 600 million years ago.
Okay.
And you might remember that.
yeah, I remember that day vividly. Go ahead.
Well, it was a thing called continental drift, and if anybody in school remembers the story of how the continents were formed and everything, that was it. And so this was where it was supposed to be another continent, but it never made it. It failed. So it didn't rip in half, but what it did do is it left a rift in the crust of the earth. It's kind of like a big scar, buried deep in the earth, and a lot of people call it the Reelfoot Rift. And so, the thing of it is that it stayed quiet for a few thousand years, and then all of a sudden it awakened. And a little over 200 years ago is when the 1811, 1812 quakes occurred. And, of course, not many people lived there other than villages of Indians, and they said a lot of them perished. Nobody knows who they were or how long or how many people actually died in that, because whole villages were swallowed up.
Wow.
And even today, they say that if a major quake like that hits, I think it was the 4 westernmost counties of Kentucky would have a phenomenon called liquefaction, where the soil actually just liquefies.
Wow.
And that, it would sink and turn into like mud, and some of that was described in some of the eyewitness accounts. The ones especially near the quake center back in 1811, 1812 were just, I could understand why they thought the end of the world was coming. For some of them, it was the end of the world. A lot of people were swallowed up in the big cracks that formed the earth, and it's one of those things that, you got to take serious. Now, it doesn't mean we should panic. We've lived here for years and years and years and generations and never had a problem. And just because you have an earthquake doesn't guarantee death. It just means that, there's going to be some damage, especially areas west of I-65.
they say that the infrastructure damage would be pretty significant. Now, what I did find in Christian County, whenever there was an eyewitness account of that written in 1815, and it says there was a fresh, fine spring of water that was observed at the time to start running muddy, and after it cleared and settled, it was found to be strongly impregnated with sulfur, and so much that it was spoiled for domestic uses. So that was, became sulfur water, in other words. And that was one of the things that I saw that was most damaging in Christian County. Now, I do know that Christian County sits on a big slab of bedrock, which is a little unusual for the rest of the area, and the infrastructure, would be damaged, but maybe not so much as other areas. And it's an interesting hypothesis of what would be like if a big new magnitude earthquake struck, because probably this country would never recover from it in our lifetime. It'd be that severe.
And you said be aware and be cautious, but if it's that bad that it's opening up and swallowing, I mean, what can we do anyway? Is there, how are we going to protect ourselves from that anyway?
For one thing, that was where you were right on the fault itself. And most of us in our region, we're not right on the fault. Now, we're close enough to it. Yeah, we would feel the effects of it, but nothing that severe. And it's going to depend on where you live and how strong the earthquake is. So what you can do is really just everybody that lives in this area, whether you live in the earthquake zone, or we have tornadoes, we have all kinds of phenomenon that could cause life-threatening situations. So the proper thing to do is just have a family emergency plan. What are you going to do if you're at work and a disaster strikes? What about your family? Do you have a plan with how you'll meet up, how you'll find out if each of you are okay? I can tell you from experience, if you have a tornado, most of your cell phones are not going to work because it's so overloaded with people trying to make calls out, you can't get through. And so, consider that you may not have telephones to call. And if you have an earthquake, infrastructure, look how many bridges are between you and going to work. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So if you have all that taking place, it gives you some kind of self-gratification, or maybe that's not the word I'm looking for, self-assurance.
Peace. Yeah, a little bit of peace of mind.
Yeah, peace of mind that your family knows what to do and they're going to do it, and you have enough supplies. I'd recommend everybody have supplies to last at least a couple of weeks. And to be honest with you, if an earthquake of that size occurs, you're going to have to be able to last much longer. So there's a lot of information on the internet out there on how to survive and what you should do to prepare and have a family emergency plan. Think of what you need the most. The number one thing is shelter and water are the two most important things. And then food would be the third thing. And of course, any medications you may have, what are you going to do about your medications? Are there some plants in the wild that you can harvest that would help with any ailments that you have that might take the place of those medications? There are some things out there that are very good and would enable you to survive. But hopefully nothing like that is ever going to be needed. But still, it doesn't hurt to prepare. You've got to have some kind of a plan, whether it be earthquake or asteroid strike or terrorist attack or tornadoes. All kinds of things could happen. It is a dangerous world we live in, and it's not like it used to be. So you need to take things a little more serious.
Absolutely.
And of course, you don't want to try to get into town like, to a big store or something, maybe like Walmart, because it probably would not be safe. That's what, if you wait to the last minute to prepare when it's already upon you, you've already waited too long. So. And
I think some of us experienced that to a degree back in the ice storm in 2009. Who was prepared for that? I mean, I know I wasn't. There's nothing could have prepared us for. Well, unless we're. And I don't know, where's the line between doomsdayers, that's got, you have your attic stocked and, just living life and taking it one day at a time and not worrying about anything.
Well, and you're right to an extent.
And I didn't mean your attic, I meant your cellar, but anyway.
No, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. I mean, how deep do you want to get into this? Well, we don't know because it hasn't happened in our lifetime, so we don't know how you're going to have to prepare. I can tell you the state has a plan. In fact, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers says there's enough energy right now in the New Madrid for at least a 7.0 earthquake. And so, therefore, we need to at least plan for that. Doesn't mean that it's going to happen right away, but we do need to plan for it. I don't know. It's just one of those things where you have to make up your own mind. How much is enough? I don't know what to tell you. That's a difficult situation, but I'm not real comfortable with telling anybody how much they should or should not prepare. I'm just saying that prepare as best as you can, because it's not a matter of if it's going to happen. It is when it's going to happen. There is no doubt the New Madrid earthquake will break loose someday, and when it does, then heaven help us all.
Sure,
that's all I can say.
Right.
But the bad thing would be if you stop and think about it, what would your life be like if you had no electricity, no chance of electricity coming on anytime in the next, say, couple of 3 months? If there were injuries, what are you going to do? What are you going to do for food? Because obviously grocery stores will probably be emptied out. In fact, they said, FEMA did a study, said that most groceries would be empty in 48 hours.
Oh, my gosh.
With nothing left.
Right.
And then, I hate to say this, but you have to think about self-preservation. If you've prepared, don't go out and tell everybody you're preparing for it, because the first thing you're going to do, if they don't prepare, guess where they're going to come to get what they need?
Right.
So you need to be prepared to defend yourself and your family. I mean, it's a sad thing, but, it's the truth. And so I can't lie to people and say, well, it's not going to be bad, because that's not what everybody is saying. It's going to be very bad. And, I worry about our people here. I worry about what happens. And if everybody does prepare, hopefully it'll all work out. I do know that one of the things, the Kentucky actually has a pretty good earthquake plan from what I understand. And so I think it'll be a good thing that will be able to, actually I think Christian County is going to be the medical relief effort headquarters. And I believe Muhlenberg County is going to be the military relief effort, where the National Guard take place and stage out of. So there's a lot of things that, it's a lot of what ifs and wherefores and what happens, all that kind of stuff. But, who knows? You don't know until it actually gets here and then see what happens.
You gave me a geography lesson this morning. I will admit that in school, my worst subjects were math, geography, and history. Like, I had zero interest in any of those subjects. Still not.
And what was your favorite subject?
I don't know that I really liked school at all, but but I did not do well in those three subjects specifically.
Yeah.
I excelled in English. That was like my best subject.
Right.
But I didn't have an interest. But when we're talking, you're sitting here talking and telling me about the New Madrid fault and the continent splitting, and that's interesting to me now as an adult.
Right.
I wish I had that interest as a kid. I would have known so much more stuff than I know now. But
well, there's a few things that they described back then and that I've heard people talk about in today's time. One is there were booms and things like that, strange lights before these earthquakes occurred. And I've heard a lot of people say, "What was that boom?" And actually, it wasn't an earthquake. It wasn't Fort Campbell, like a lot of people say. So, I don't know what that means, but, it's one of those weird stuff. There are all kinds of strange things, geomagnetic disturbances and gases escaping from the earth just before an earthquake may seem really strange and give you some weird thoughts about what's going on. And like I said, I can see why some of the people at that time thought that, it was the end of the world.
Yeah, and that's another thing actually that I was going to say. You know, we can kind of predict tornadoes coming. We can kind of prepare for that. We can kind of prepare for, you know, usually for bad winter weather events. But earthquakes, I mean, they don't predict those coming, right? We don't even know they're on the way. It just happens.
And especially the New Madrid one is probably the most difficult to predict because it is so different than the normal fault zone. You know, a lot of the things, lights flashed from the ground during that, and that was caused by quartz crystals being squeezed when an earthquake occurred. So that process is called seismoluminescence. Just so I throw that big word in there for you.
Yeah, appreciate that. Seismoluminescence. I got it. Seismoluminescence. Oh, I get it, and I get the origin, you know, because seismic is refers to the geomagnetic activity, is that, or something?
Well, it's actually seismic activity is basically a study of earthquakes or the way earthquakes are.
Oh, okay.
There is another legend, if you were to go back and really wanted to get interested, is Tecumseh. The Shawnee chief at the time predicted that he would stomp his feet because some of the Indian tribes wouldn't join his war against the whites. And he said that when he got down to, I think it was New Orleans or somewhere in that area, he was going to stomp his feet and make the earth shake. Wow. And that's exactly what happened.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's an interesting little legend.
You can read that. There's a lot of stories on that, too, back on the Internet. Again, I'd say just get on there and do a search for Tecumseh's, I think there's one called Tecumseh's Comet because a comet appeared about that time as well. But it tells about the story of how he did that, or that he did do that, and, it's weird looking stuff. So,
well, I'll do that. I'll get on there and Google in all my spare time that I have.
You're gonna be busy for a while.
Dave, it has been such a pleasure talking to you today. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. Earthquakes, I did not know we had one this morning. I haven't been on Facebook. I've been, working. Right. So,
Well, you probably didn't feel it in Princeton. They did feel it in, like I said, in Katie's, but Princeton's a little further away from where that occurred, so probably wasn't felt much up there. And it was just mainly isolated places when you get out away from Dyersburg, but the fact of the matter is, it did happen. So, happen. Some people felt it. But anyway.
All right. Well, thank you so much for talking to me this morning again, and I look forward to next week.
And I hope you have a good week.
You too, Dave. Bye-bye.
See you, Missy. Bye.
All right. That is weather forecaster Dave Powell. Cool. We had not cool. We had an earthquake this morning. But, they're there. We're close enough that that's going to happen.
Here's your WPKY Weather Edge Weather Center forecast.
Lots of showers, thunderstorms, and cloudy skies in the forecast the next couple of days. Showers and thunderstorms start today with a high of 75. Showers and thunderstorms overnight with an overnight low around 60. More showers continue tomorrow with a high of 71. Tomorrow night, overnight low around 52 with, showers.